presentation meeting to order. And before I turn it over to the chair of our Public Safety Committee and our Traffic Committee, I would ask our town manager to please read the protocols for the Zoom meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all may have just heard, this meeting's being recorded, so I will just ask folks, if I don't have your name already, to identify yourself. I'm going to set up in the chat so you can directly send me a message if you have a question that you'd like for me to send to either Chair Vaswani or Chair Hurwitz or Councilmember Rovak, to ask either or any of the officers that are graciously joining us this evening. We're joined by Community Services Officer Dana Stroman, District 2 Lieutenant Christopher Hackley, and Sergeant Steve Chung, who you may recognize as one of the officers who served some time specifically in Somerset. That's really all I have, other than to say, if for whatever reason we do get interrupted in a way that makes it difficult or impossible for us to carry on, I'll just end the meeting and we can try to disseminate a new link to start back up. But I don't anticipate that being a problem. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So my role tonight is just to introduce our committee chairs. We have our this is actually a joint meeting of the our Public Safety Committee chaired by Kumar Vaswani and our Traffic Committee Chair Elizabeth Hurwitz. And of course, those are the two committees who work most closely on police issues. We also have a relatively new Equity and Inclusion Committee, which of course, such matters are very important to them too. So they often weigh in. And with that, I will turn it over. And I do want to thank everyone. I want to thank our committee chairs for their incredible work, the committees, and of course, the second district team, which provides for our primary responsibility for public safety in Somerset. I see on this Zoom, we have Councilmember Shannon Rovak, who is the liaison to the Public Safety Committee. She probably wants, you want to just say hello? She's just saying hello. And then we also have our distinguished resident, former Council President Marnie Shaw, who you all know and worked closely on these issues for many, many years. And we're so happy she's here. So with that, I'll turn it over. I think I'm supposed to turn it over to Elizabeth Hurwitz, Chair of the Traffic Committee. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thank you so much, Second District team. We're really happy to meet with you, and we've certainly benefited from your services. And so I will just introduce myself as, Chair of the Traffic Committee. The Traffic Committee's major concern has always been stop sign compliance and unsafe driving. And so on behalf of the committee and residents who are concerned, I just wanted to get a chance to meet you. Thank you for your services, see how we can be more helpful to you, and just follow up with any questions. So that's sort of the Traffic Committee part of this meeting. Kumar, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Traffic Committee Chair Hurwitz and Mr. Mayor and Town Manager Trollinger and Councilmember Rovak. I also want to thank my predecessor in this position, Bruce Tully. Bruce has been a friend, he's been a mentor, a community leader, neighbor, and a committee chair. And he also risked his life protecting presidents and American diplomats abroad. And he actually got the Public Safety Committee up and running last year. And I know that our town and our committee have benefited from his wise counsel. And I know that's going to continue. And so I want to say that one of the goals of the Public Safety Committee is to provide accurate information to residents so that they can make intelligent choices about their own safety. And when it comes to crime trends, crime prevention, and law enforcement, there is no better source of information than our own Second District police officials. And we're grateful to have Officer Dana Stroman and Lieutenant Christopher Hackley here today for a presentation and take questions. And I also want to note that the town hires Montgomery County police officers to work in the town and provide supplemental police coverage. And we have two excellent officers who work here, one of whom is here today, Sergeant Steve Chung, and we're looking forward to hearing from him during the question and answer period. And so now I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Hackley.
Great. First and foremost, thanks for inviting us here. Thank the residents and thank you all for reaching out, and thank Officer Stroman for coordinating this. I'm obviously here on behalf of Commander Gagan, who apologizes that he can't be here. He had an alternate speaking event he had to be at tonight. Just a little bit about me. I've been on the department for 15 years. I was a sergeant down in the Second District, probably for about 5 years. And luckily within the past year, I've been brought back as one of the deputy commanders at the station. So I'm very happy to be back and to be back part of the community again to serve all the residents there. I did come up with a brief PowerPoint. Am I able to share that with you all? Would that be okay? All right, I apologize in advance for my technological difficulties here.
Hopefully it should allow you to share. If not, let me know.
Let me see. Did that pop up for you? Okay. So this slide here, this is basically our numbers comparatively speaking to the county, and then broken down underneath the Second District statistics as far as crime. The numbers are somewhat difficult to read and comprehend, but basically as the nation faces an increase in violent crime, in which some portions of our county have seen, as well as our jurisdictional partners, in the Second District, we've basically maintained the same numbers as we had last year. So the good news is violent crime, it appears to be down in our district. And the real issue that we look at on a daily basis is crimes against property, or larcenies, people having things stolen from them, which I know is a concern of you all and many of your residents. Some of the crime trends that we're seeing on a daily basis, obviously vehicle-related thefts and pickpocket incidences are up. Overnight commercial burglaries in the Friendship Heights area, I know that was a big concern of the community. And countywide robbery trend at some of our Target stores, and also an armed robbery at a Bethesda nail salon. So as we go through the slides, I'll kind of break those down and provide some updates as to what the police department's done to rectify those issues. So I know what is probably hot and heavy on a lot of your minds is the stolen vehicles, theft from vehicles, and auto parts that are being stolen off of cars. And a lot of this is going to be aimed at what your residents can do to help us, and then in return, what we can do to help you. So just a breakdown, in 2021, there were 229 stolen vehicles. This is for Bethesda. Out of those 229, 119 had keys left inside that particular vehicle, or a vehicle that was parked adjacent to it in the driveway. Additionally, in 2021, there were 9 vehicles that were stolen when they were left running and unattended. So how that factors into this year, so far we're 4 months in. We've had 66 stolen vehicles in the district, 40 of which had keys left inside. That's 60% of all cars that are stolen have their keys left inside or an adjacent vehicle. I would also note that Some of this is underreported, as victims who have their car stolen, sometimes they're not forthcoming with telling the responding officer, yeah, I left my keys in the car, because how that may make them sound or how it may appear to their insurance company. So I think that those numbers are higher than what's reported, but that's a personal opinion. Additionally, like I said, we're 4 months in and we've already had 6 vehicles stolen because the owner has left it running and unattended in their driveway. So if we continue at that pace, we're going to far exceed the numbers from last year. And then as far as theft from vehicles or stolen vehicle parts, we're already up to 192 reported. Once again, I believe this is an underreported number. I know that's an issue that was brought up. In those events, out of the 192, 164 events noted in the report that no force was used to gain entry into the car. And additionally, there were 34 catalytic converters that were stolen. So when we get into the what can you do as far as residents and the education piece that we can put out to the residents in the community, first and foremost, it's report. The more information that the department has, we have professionals that track crime statistics, as well as the lieutenants, the commander, the community service officer. We're looking at daily crime stats so that we can effectively and efficiently deploy our personnel to the areas in which there's crime to get the most bang for our buck. With that, I've heard many times, and I've heard from the patrol officers many times, that they'll be in a neighborhood where there may be 1 theft from auto, but in reality, there were 10 theft from autos, but only 1 person called to report it. The other 9 people just said, well, it wasn't a big deal. It was just my sunglasses that were stolen out of the car. I don't want to wait for the police to come, etc. Where that becomes an issue is when the officers come out to process these scenes where there's multiple cars that were broken into. The person who actually reports it, when the officer processes the car for fingerprints off that particular car, they may not get any fingerprints. However, the person who doesn't call it in, when that officer, if they had reported it, the officer could get fingerprints off that car, which would then allow us and our investigators to tie the cases together and actually identify a person and make an arrest. So reporting is really key, and to put the community members at ease, you're not bothering us. That's our job. That's what we're paid to do. Please call it in. An officer will come out and we can assess the situation and process the vehicles for evidence. Secondly, we need to lock our cars. That is the really #1 thing that you can do to alleviate yourself from becoming a victim. How a lot of these crews will work is they will come to the area, and how I equate this to is if I go out to eat at a nice restaurant and I really enjoy my meal, the first thing I do when I come back to work the next day is tell a bunch of other people how great this restaurant is in hopes that they might go try it out. And what we see is criminals that are victimizing the 2nd District, they do the same thing. They come to Bethesda, they understand that there's high quality products to be stolen here. They do it, they go back to where they reside, and they tell all their friends. And then we have not just one trend or one group committing the crime, we have multiple crews coming into the area to do that. The other thing that I would tell you is it's very easy. Everybody has a smartphone, a cell phone. Set a daily alarm on your phone. 8 o'clock at night, have it go off. Hey, lock your car, remove your valuables. That way it's every day, that it's just a friendly reminder that you can do on your own. Additionally, I tell all people, if you have garage door openers that you hang up on your visor, which I'm sure a lot of people have, take those out of your car and put them inside. When you have that garage door, if somebody does happen to break into the car, they now don't have access to whatever's in your garage or entry into your house. In addition to that, as I stated, that we have some crews operating within the district. Generally, what we're seeing is these individuals are mainly focused on stealing vehicles. The fact is they will drive down, they will enter the car that's unlocked. Most of the vehicles now with the technology, they're put your foot on the brake, hit the ignition switch, and the vehicle powers on. As soon as that happens, the car is backing out of the driveway and it's gone before you know it. So with that, like I said, when you lock it, you prevent a lot of that from happening. They're just going to move on to the next driveway. Additionally, not only while you're home, when you go out shopping, if you have any valuables in the car that you couldn't have left at home, or you went shopping, you have shopping bags in the car, put them in the trunk of the car, out of view of anybody. That way people don't, people are there watching, suspects are watching for opportunity. So if you remove the valuables and put them in the trunk, it just adds a layer of protection. It makes it harder for that person to get into your vehicle and get your property. There's other things that you can do at your home as far as utilizing motion lighting in your driveway and installing surveillance cameras. These may not help at the time, but as far as if you do become a victim, it really gives the investigators a good starting point and some leads as to who may have done this and how many people we're looking for. The other issues that we see is when we get to the house or the residence regarding a call for service for a stolen vehicle. Like I said, many of the new technologies in the cars have tracking capability. The issue is there's a time delay because the person, the victim, doesn't know the code or doesn't have the password set up in order to initiate those tracking capabilities. So that would be one of those things that I would put on a piece, store in your phone. That way, if it ever does happen to you, you have the unfortunate, you can easily pull that up and start tracking your vehicle so we can recover it quicker. And lastly, as I stated, that we have had a trend as far as the catalytic converters being stolen from underneath the cars. The suspects are targeting these parts because of the precious metals. And when they bring them to the scrapyard, they're obviously getting a good amount of money for them. So although it's not overly cheap, it's also not overly expensive. You could take your vehicle into the mechanic and you could have them install a catalytic converter shield that goes over top the catalytic converter and just adds a layer of security so that when the suspect tries to get under the car, for them, they can usually get a catalytic converter removed within about 45 to 90 seconds. If they see that shield, they're not even going to target your car. They're gonna get out and go to the next driveway. As far as these trends, and I spoke with our sergeant of our special assignment team, he just wanted me to reiterate to as many people as I can. Just the other night, it was probably a week ago, they work in a plainclothes capacity, so they don't drive marked police vehicles. They happen to be in the district, but not in this particular area. And actually a concerned citizen called in at about, I believe it was 2:30 in the morning, that there was two males walking in the neighborhood. So without that call from a concerned citizen, the SAT team would have never went to the area. And as a result, they ended up recovering the vehicle that they were in, which was stolen, as well as a bunch of catalytic converters and other property related to theft from vehicles. So really, at the end of the day, the big piece here is lock your cars, remove your valuables, and when you see something suspicious, please, please, please call the police. You're not a bother to us at all. The next thing that we've seen regarding Bethesda, and especially in the area of Friendship Heights down on Willard Avenue, some of the grocery stores down there, we have had reports of pickpockets and purse snatches. We had 4 events in March related to pickpockets. And just on Monday, April 4th, we had a report of a strong-arm robbery in which one victim was relieved of her purse and the suspects attempted to steal a purse off of another elderly female. In general terms, the pickpocketings, how these occur, and reading through the reports, a suspect will create a ruse to get close or distract the victim. So our advice to you is if you don't know somebody, don't allow them to get in your space. I would call it maintaining the COVID rule, keeping 6 feet of space between you and somebody else, especially that you don't know. And they are very crafty with what they will say. One of the reports was the person stated to the victim that he was having trouble walking because there was an issue with his hip. When the suspect put his arm around the person who was helping him out to his car, he sneakily went into the person's back pocket and stole his wallet. And then the person was receiving bank alerts that thousands of dollars were being charged at Bloomingdale's and Saks and other area businesses. So other reports are that when you go out to a restaurant, we're kind of carefree. For the women, you may put your purse on your chair back, kind of forget about it, and then before you know it, you have no idea where your wallet went. So how do you combat this other than keeping some distance? I tell people to be suspicious of everybody. You really have to know your surroundings. And if you don't know somebody, just be very cautious. I know that it's human nature to want to be friendly to people, but really you just have to understand that there are people out there waiting to seize an opportunity to victimize you. So for the men or the women who carry wallets, I would suggest putting the wallet in a breast pocket or a front pocket. Those are areas that aren't common for wallets to be kept, and it just adds a layer of protection for a suspect that may think you're an easy target. And then the other thing you can do as far as on the back end for investigations, just ensure you have automatic bank alerts. So that way, if you do fall victim to one of these crimes, you're going to get immediately notified, and it can get the police involved a little sooner to get your property back and ensure that none of the charges placed on your cards come back to you. I know that there was in the email, there was a question about forgery, mail theft, and identity theft. In Bethesda, we have had some reports of mail being stolen. They are targeting checks, either incoming or outgoing. And they're kind of going back to years ago where they would just put a ball of tape or some device inside those big blue mailboxes. And it's called phishing. They put the string in, they pull it out, they get whatever mail's in the box. Really, to avoid this, we haven't had any reports in the last 4 weeks regarding this, but if you have the time, just walk your mail directly into the post office and drop it off with the person behind the desk. That prevents a lot of this. Moving on, understand that this was a big concern. It was a concern of the commander. In February and early March, there were reports of several commercial burglaries at establishments down in the Friendship Heights area, to include Aqualux, Depandi, and Potomac Pizza. And on Super Bowl Sunday, the 2nd District officers responded to a flash mob style robbery theft that occurred at the Saks Fifth Avenue. In relation to that, the commander put together an overtime detail, basically upstaffed that area of the district with overtime officers and on-duty officers, and it was just a high visibility patrol in addition to our special assignment team. And during the 4 weeks that we conducted this detail, we made several arrests, one of which is highlighted here. This is regarding the flash mob theft arrest that occurred at the Saks. Through some investigations and very keen witnesses that were on the scene, 2 of the getaway vehicles were identified. And as a result of the investigation, Mr. Dreon Irax, Mr. D'Angelo Owens, and Mr. Marco Matthews were all identified and have been arrested for that. There's still 5 outstanding, and the detectives tell me that arrests are forthcoming with them. And moving right along, I know that previously we talked about the countywide target robberies in the Bethesda area nail salon. Essentially beginning in December, going through March, there was a subject who was going into the local targets, stealing electronics. He came into the Bethesda target right around Christmas time. He was unsuccessful at the robbery attempt at the target, so he went next door to an area nail salon and committed a robbery, multiple patrons of the business. Through working with our investigative section at the 2nd District, as well as our major crimes detectives in our robbery division. Mr. Keyshawn Reese was identified as a suspect, and on March 30th, our units, along with the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force, located Mr. Reese, and he was in possession of the 2 firearms that you see pictured. That pretty much wraps up the presentation as far as trends. I know that one of the concerns that was just brought up about the traffic in the Somerset area regarding the stop sign running, we've seen this countywide. There's obviously more traffic on the roads now that we're kind of in the post-pandemic era, coupled with daylight savings. And really what it boils down to with the stop signs, the public, the residents, we need to understand that the stop signs are an optional. The traffic control devices that are placed all upon the roads in the state of Maryland, they're there for a reason. They're there because there's studies that have been done that show if they're not there, collisions happen. So pay attention to them, drive defensively, drive politely, and obviously give yourself more time to get to where you need to be, and watch for pedestrian and bicyclists. As the weather is getting warmer, failing to stop at a stop sign could lead to a pedestrian collision or a bicyclist, because they may not be paying the same attention to the roadway as you, the driver, should be. And with that, that pretty much wraps up my presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Lieutenant Hackley. I'm sorry, Councilmember Rovak, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. This information has been so helpful. And I mean, I think it's worth like all the reminders for, you know, our neighbors to continue to lock their cars. Like, you know, I hear people sometimes say, oh, well, if you don't leave anything in your car and you leave it unlocked, that might be better so that people won't be breaking in. But it seems like that is just more of a recipe for having people kind of continue to come back through the neighborhood.
Yeah, so how I see it anyway is, as I explained, when they come into the neighborhood, and I say they usually, it's not a single person, it's usually a group that will come in a car. Generally the car is stolen. They will get out, 2 will go on one side of the road, 2 will go on the other side of the road, and then they obviously have the getaway driver who's kind of following them. They will go driveway to driveway, and they're just checking door handles. If your car is locked, they're skipping that car and they're going to go to the neighbor's house, and then the next house and the next house. So for us, if everybody locks their car, that group is soon going to realize this is not going to be an easy neighborhood to target. All the cars were locked. Statistics, reports are showing that we're not seeing people breaking windows to get into the vehicle. Now, if you leave your purse or your wallet or a Rolex or any type of valuable property within eyesight from outside the car, you may be, you know, that may encourage somebody to break a window. But short of that, if there's nothing in your car and that door is locked, they're just going to go to the next car.
And then do you have an opinion as far as like, you know, for outside lighting? Do you think that constant lighting is better, or is motion detector lighting almost better because they think that someone's then stopping them or something?
I mean, lighting in general it's really a deterrent. But I think the motion lighting, it adds the sense of surprise. So when that light comes on, they don't know if it's somebody inside turning the light on or the motion. Whereas if it's lit all the time, I would encourage lighting. You know, that could deter somebody might not come into the neighborhood because there is over the top lighting. But I think for residents in general, if you have a motion light on your garage that overlooks the cars, if it's completely dark and that light comes on, they're probably going to either leave the neighborhood or run to the next house.
Okay. And then as far as like kind of how our neighborhood operates, I mean, we're, you know, part of the public safety committee, you know, as was introduced, we have a separate listserv that tends to get, you know, kind of some information like hearsay, like, oh, so-and-so heard that, you know, a car was stolen in the town of Chevy Chase or whatnot. Like, what are our neighborhood expectations as far as knowledge about what is going on as far like with these crimes and within our neighborhood, and then also within the neighboring neighborhoods? You know, what do you think that residents should be made aware of? And you know, how do we get this across?
Officer Stroman, you want to take that?
Sure. Okay, so what I would definitely suggest is that because criminals obviously don't have any rules on boundaries and stay within any particular community, they're just looking for the greatest opportunities. So I would say first, we have on the 2nd District website, crime summaries that are put out on a weekly basis. They're updated on a weekly basis by our crime analysts, and it will give you the overall kind of general crime patterns and trends that are occurring over the past week, so that you have an idea for your community, which if you look under the 2nd District, on our website, it will say E1, Edward 1, and that would be your community. And you'll be able to kind of see on a map on our website that tells you what part of our district it is. And then you could see even neighboring districts. Obviously, you all would be our E1B. And then if you look at E2, it's going to be just north of you all, or D1, which would be kind of on the other side from you all across. But it will give you an idea of what types of crime patterns and trends are occurring, so that you're aware, because they do tend to target a particular area and then they may move to another neighboring community. Then because what happens is people call the police, we respond, we put a police presence in that area, then they move to the next area. So it's kind of like a cat and mouse game. So we're trying to keep up with them. So it's very important that you are aware of what current crime patterns and trends are occurring. And one of the things why, you brought up a great question about lighting, is I'm a big advocate of lighting, just because it allows law-abiding citizens to accurately report things. And with lighting, it allows also your neighbors to be your eyes and ears as well, and to see what's going on if there's appropriate lighting, adequate lighting, especially during the overnight hours around your residence. So making sure that you look at your residence from the street and just look at what would make your home attractive or your driveway attractive to a criminal or criminal activity. Are there bushes? Are there hiding places? Is it dark around your residence? Are your house numbers visible from the street, so that if you needed to call 911, be it for police, EMS, or fire, that we would be able to identify your home immediately. And I think getting to know your neighbors is very important. And don't be afraid, like the Lieutenant Hackley indicated, don't be afraid to call the police. It's very important. If you see something suspicious going on, you're calling it in. And we also have available on our website is Data Montgomery. It allows you to put in a particular area address and find out what crimes have occurred there. That way you get that information. The only thing I would say, kind of caution you, is sometimes that Data Montgomery information is collected based off of where the call was made, not necessarily where the crime may have occurred. So if someone gets, assaulted at a store and they wait until they get home to report it, it may come up as their address where they report it. But it gives you an overall general idea of what is going on in the area.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. This is Jackie. I don't know if you can see me. I'm a Somerset resident, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for your time and your valuable insights and information. This has been really, wonderful presentations by you all. Do you have any success stories that you can share from neighborhoods that perhaps had an increase in theft vehicles, and then if they did anything to mitigate those measures outside of door locking, but particularly how were they able to decrease their car thefts? Did they do something in particular, like a neighborhood watch or friendly reminders to lock your doors, or some sort of a tidbits of information, or other useful tools or tactics that were actually useful, that were measurable, that could decrease vehicle theft in a particular neighborhood? So any best practices you could share would be wonderful.
I would say definitely you bring up some great points on. I'm a big proponent of Neighborhood Watch program. We've used it here in the 2nd District in a variety of communities. And it causes communities to come together, to get to know each other, work together, keeping each other informed in a variety of ways, be it email, or if you know your neighbor's not big on email, there's a phone call. You are responsible for kind of sharing information and getting that information out to your surrounding neighbors. And it is a very effective tools, because I think it's about communities coming together, working together, so that it doesn't seem as if it's an isolated incident. And it also allows you to have that constant relationship with the 2nd District, with the Neighborhood Watch program. We would meet on a monthly basis sometimes, or how often you all set it up, because Neighborhood Watch is definitely a community's program. So it's structured however you all feel that it best meets your needs, and identifying what would be your goals. Usually the training for Neighborhood Watch program is initially pretty kind of detailed, because it does cover a lot of information about what to report when you're calling into 911 or 279-8000. And it goes over what is suspicious behavior. Sometimes people are a little reluctant to call things in for fear of feeling like they may be profiling people or something of that nature. But we want to make sure that they understand that it's okay. You should be familiar with what's the norm in your community, calling it in as a suspicious activity or behavior that is occurring, and why you feel this way, and having that constant communication. We have here at the 2nd District, we have brochures on all types of crime patterns and trends, crime prevention brochures that we are happy to provide to community members, so that it is available to each and every resident there.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so helpful.
Well, I just want to say one of the big takeaways from this forum today is that there are many things that our community can do for themselves to help prevent crime and to help the police detect crimes. And one thing I will note is that when the Public Safety Committee did a survey last year, something like 50% of respondents who had experienced the crime in Somerset had never reported it. And so I think that's important to encourage people to report their crimes. And I have a question about the interactive crime map that's on the county police website. And I think we talked about this before, but once a crime is reported to the police, does it always show up on that interactive crime map, or is that just a sample of crimes that are reported?
No, that is an actual indication of what has been reported.
Okay, because a couple weeks ago, as you and I had emailed, there were about 5 or 6 cars stolen in the Bethesda area in the space of about a week. And one of our residents, who was well-meaning, kind of erroneously reported on the website that all 5 cars had been stolen from Somerset. And as you can imagine, that caused a whole range of emotions and consternation in our town. And when I went to that interactive crime map, I only saw 1 crime. And so, I guess that highlights the importance of getting accurate information and, we should always look to the official source of information for that kind of thing, because otherwise it can lead to sort of unfounded rumors. And the other thing is, I've noticed sometimes on the private listserv that many people in this town subscribe to, you'll find sort of a little spate of incidents where cars will be, where you'll have theft from autos. And even when people report on that listserv that they have reported it to the police, I sometimes still don't find on that interactive crime map that it shows up there. So I don't know where the disconnect is. Is it just people say they're going to report it, but then they don't, or they have experience some obstacle to reporting it? But again, I think it just goes to the importance of reporting those crimes.
It definitely is very important to report the crimes. And I think some of the challenges is that if there's some type of time delay in when it gets reported, sometimes that's where I think the hurdle obstacle becomes, where people go, okay, well, I will call later. I have something to do now. And then as time goes by, the importance of it just kind of lessens for them. But we really do encourage you to report, and report it immediately. Is helpful for the police department, because oftentimes people may have an officer that they're familiar with, and they think that by leaving a voicemail or telling them in conversation that that's a reporting. But we want you to actually file a police report if you are targeted and experience a theft from vehicle.
Can I ask a quick follow-up on that question? I don't want to take away time from residents who might have questions, but I just wanted to clarify something, Officer Stroman, that maybe it would be beneficial for residents to hear from you. Sometimes I get a resident who might email or call our office about an issue, thinking that the town can report an issue on a resident's behalf. And I have to explain to them that there's no way for me to report an issue on somebody's behalf. So maybe you could just reiterate that point and explain that process for folks.
Yes, that's a great point again, because the victim is the only person that can report a crime, okay? And so we want that victim to report it, so we get it firsthand, so it's the most accurate information, so that the town manager or the mayor, they can't report a crime on someone's behalf. That resident has to be the one reporting it. And if it's not, if they're not available at that time, they can always call it in when they are available. But it is very important that the person who is the victim is reporting the crime. And again, that kind of goes to some of the misinformation that may get spread around communities, because when we've seen in the past where an incident may occur, and I may be sharing that information with a neighbor, and then that neighbor shares it. And each time the story gets retold, it gets told a little differently. So by the time it gets around the community, it looks like there have been 10 different incidents, when in fact, we're all describing the same incident, but it just got told a little differently. So that's why it's so important that we get the most accurate information from the person who actually was the victim. So please encourage residents, if they are a victim of any type of crime, it's important for them to call the police and report it.
Thank you.
Can I, just so I know, like, so if let's say I leave my car open and my sunglasses are stolen, would I dial 911? Or is there a different number I should be calling?
That's exactly right. That's a great question, because 911 is for emergencies only. We try to reserve that for really high priority when someone's life is in danger. So we want you to use the 301-279-8000, the non-emergency police number. It goes to the exact same place. However, the call takers are taking the 911 calls first, and then prioritizing the other calls. But they all go to our communication center, but they do get answered. So it's important to call that 301-279-8000 number. And just, I don't know if you all are aware, but we do have an email address for, I know sometimes traffic complaints come in. We do have an email address. So if there are traffic complaints and concerns in your community, if you want to email the traffic complaint officer, their generic email address is 2D traffic complaints with an S at montgomerycountymd.gov. And that way they can address, or at least have some communication with you in reference to any type of traffic complaints.
That's great to know. Thank you. This is all really helpful information. And now that we're sort of discussing traffic for a second, I would be very interested to hear, you know, how we can be helpful in encouraging stop sign compliance. I know we can put letters in our newsletter and that sort of thing and continue public education. But we have also noticed, particularly Officer Cheng and other officers, you know, have stopped people for not stopping at stop signs and have made notes in a Google Docs log that we can sometimes check. And I have heard from various residents that they would encourage ticketing or citations rather than just warnings. I don't know if that's something that, you know, we can express our preference on, or maybe understand how an officer chooses whether to do a citation or a warning. And so my question is sort of, in addition to public education, how can we encourage, you know, is it by directing police officers to specific intersections where we know there tend to be problems? You know, what can we do to bolster stop sign compliance?
So, I mean, definitely, I would say, I always like to say, let's be kind of good community members and good neighbors initially, and start off with, let's put out some information reminding people, you know, springtime is coming. You have a very walkable community. People want to be out more. The weather will be nice and warm. So just put out a nice reminder. And it may need to come out a couple of times during a year, and just reminding. But then if you see that there are some real issues that creating some dangerous situations, I would definitely reach out to, you know, the 2nd District complaint officer to let them know what specific intersection or where the violations are occurring, and give them a kind of a time frame. So, I mean, obviously we wouldn't be able to sit at the stop sign 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but at least identifying the exact location, giving us some time frames that we would be able to have officers there to monitor that. And then we have an internal database where we can share information based off of an area, and say, in this area in the town of Somerset, they would like some enforcement because of speeding or stop sign violations in that way. And I will tell you, most of the times when we go out, we find that it is residents from that particular community, and they get very upset. So,
Yes.
you know, we always say, you know, that's why I always encourage some type of friendly reminder initially to say, well, was there something that came out in the newsletter, or was there something posted on the listserv? We really are just trying to make your community safe for everyone.
And then I know there's this Google Doc that's been used as sort of a log, and I am wondering, is that, you know, is that onerous for the officers to keep that up? That's very helpful for us to see what's going on. And I just want to make sure that that's our best way of kind of tracking what's going on, and that it's easy for officers as well as for us.
Well, I'm not familiar with what you all are, how you all are logging your traffic violations, but I would say that's probably more for internally with your community, because we're not looking to target anyone in particular or any community. We're just saying if there's a violation, if we come out and observe it, that we do have the discretion of taking some type of action to enforce it. But sometimes it's a matter of, you know what, educating people, issuing them a warning. So it's not all about just issuing citations as well, because sometimes having that communication can go a long ways in kind of building those relationships within the community and explaining to them how dangerous their behavior is, or, you know, why we're there and why we're taking the actions that we are, because there's so many community members that are concerned.
Sergeant Chung might be able to add something to that.
Good evening. This is Sergeant Steve Chung with the I'm one of the town officers who work part-time at the town of Somerset. As far as the Google document that we use, it is an internal documentation that we log not just traffic, but any events that occur within the town. And it's events that occur while the town officers are working at the town. It doesn't log any other incidents that happen outside of our work within the town. But anytime we make a traffic stop, or anytime we respond to a call, anytime we respond to an alarm, or even as simple as removing a large tree branch off of a roadway so that, you know, traffic can flow. Those are all things that we log into the Google document, but it's an internal document that we keep, and it's not shared within the police department itself.
Got it. Yeah, we find that very helpful. So thank you.
Caroline Cooper has a question. Caroline Cooper, who's a member of our Public Safety Committee.
Unmute myself. Thank you very much for coming, and this has been very interesting. I just wanted to ask, perhaps Officer Stroman has this information. Do many of the communities around Somerset have private or contracted police or security services like Somerset? And if so, do you know how they use them and what their authority is that they're given?
There are a variety of communities that do use off-duty police officers to sit in their communities, but what they do is based off of the contract that they develop with those officers. Under our secondary employment process within Montgomery County, if it's security related, there's some variety of protocols and procedures that we have to follow, and paperwork that has to be put in place. But basically they're there to monitor activity, and it just depends on what as a community, what the concerns are and how they address those. It's just such a wide variety on how to address them.
But I think some of the communities don't use Montgomery County officers. They have security forces, or I'm not quite sure. I just wondered if, and I don't know how they interact with, the Montgomery County police if they do have an incident. Do you happen to have any knowledge about this, or is this something we should pursue ourselves just to get ideas of other approaches?
I mean, I would say reach out to those communities if you're familiar with them that have security guards in their communities. But as far as reporting to the police department here in the 2nd District, they would be calling it in if they observe some type of activity, just like a citizen or resident would. There's, no difference in that. They would just be contacting us, just like even the off-duty officers that work in communities. If there's an incident that occurs, they contact an on-duty officer to respond.
Okay, thank you.
And I actually have a question, because this issue of the closure of Little Falls Parkway between River Road and Arlington Road was kind of became an issue recently. It's being closed on the weekends for recreational use by bikers and walkers. Does it cause any kind of delay in response times as far as you have experienced?
No, I'm not aware of any delay because we are made aware of this road closure. I mean, and obviously it's been that way now for a while with the pandemic and everything. So we are made aware of this so that we know how to navigate and so it doesn't delay our response. Anytime there's a road closure, something like that, that's why it's so important that we get that information as the local police department.
Does anyone have any other questions? Councilmember Rovak.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to open up like a can of worms or anything, but a lot of times what happens when, we have one of these incidents where someone's car is stolen and it goes along on the public listserv. One of the solutions that a lot of neighbors feel will be appropriate would be to put up cameras in our neighborhood and on all of the ins and outs streets of the neighborhood. And I wanted to understand like your take on that. And if you felt that that was, number one, a deterrent, knowing that there might be cameras there. And number two, do they really help to solve the crimes if a car is stolen?
For cameras, I was going to say, I was going to say cameras are very helpful in assisting police in investigations and when there's some type of criminal activity. However, when you talk about placing cameras out on streets and things of that nature, you want to take into consideration the cost of maintaining them. Okay, and the placement of the cameras as well, which can be kind of a whole nother kind of concern in itself, because who's going to maintain the cameras? Who's going to make sure that they're operational? Because if they are placed in plain view, there is a reasonable expectation of anyone that is in that area that these cameras are working and operational, so that if something was to happen, a reasonable person would have the expectation that it could be viewed to see what occurred. And then what you look at is that, especially now when some people are still wearing masks, a lot of times when criminal activity does occur, they're wearing baseball caps. Oftentimes when you see street cameras, they're up high, they get a nice kind of downward view of your top of your hat or your head and not many facial features. So there's a lot of things that go into this that have to be closely monitored and maintained. And I would think that you would need to figure out who would take on that responsibility and what liability would that fall upon the town should you have these cameras and for whatever reason they're not operational and something was to occur. And we ask that anytime one has cameras that they are stored, the information is stored for a minimum of at least 30 days, so that if there is some delay in reporting for whatever reason, that we would be able to get that information as well. And the Lieutenant may have something additional to add.
Yeah, just, you have to weigh the concerns of the residents as far as privacy is concerned. Officer Stroman touched on a lot of the points I was thinking about as far as the liability. But yes, in general, more so the stolen vehicle that leaves, well, we already know the tag of that car. We're concerned about the tag of the car that dropped them off to steal the car. More oftentimes than not, that car's stolen. So it doesn't really give us a good lead on who's driving it or who's in it. It just gives us a lead on the car. So yes, cameras, the technological advances that have come along since I've been on, they're great. It's just how they're used and understanding the capabilities that they're not going to catch everything. So you really have to do a case-by-case cost benefit analysis to determine, as well as buy-in from the community to actually implement the program.
Mayor Slavin.
Yes, I want to say three things. First of all, regarding lighting, which is something that I have talked to Officer Stroman about on a number of occasions. I'm glad she stressed the importance of lighting. And of course, she doesn't want to embarrass us, but I want to say that if you drive around Somerset at night, it is shocking the number of houses that are so poorly lit. And I doubt those houses have the motion detectors. So we have been urging, I've been in office for 20 years and we have been urging over and over and over again. And I think it's really important. What's so great about this meeting tonight is it will jumpstart our ability to communicate. One thing that's come across very clear tonight is that we need to communicate these issues and recommendations constantly to our residents, and that's the way. So thank you. Secondly, in terms of neighborhood watch, I would love if we had a neighborhood watch team in Somerset. It's been attempted on many occasions. It's all about and of course, our police department, the Second District Police, has so many resources that we don't even take advantage of. Tonight we're taking advantage of it, right? So, but the problem with the neighborhood watch is that we need to find motivated volunteers that will get the training and will stay on the job. And so it's really on us. It's on us. And I'm glad that Jackie Kwan is so excited about it. Maybe she would be willing to lead the neighborhood watch team. I don't mean to volunteer to do something. And the third topic that I wanted to bring up, which Lieutenant Hackley brought up earlier, is that many of the calls that I get from residents related to crime and the town manager is identity theft. And I'm just wondering, when somebody we get, of course, older citizens that get a phone call from someone alleging to be their grandchild, that they're stranded in Europe. You've all heard their stories. So I'm just wondering, and then also the people, you get an email that your friend gets an email that they want to borrow some money or want to buy an Amazon thing. And I'm just wondering, how much ability do you have to follow up on those things? 'Cause I can't imagine that the local police has the resources for that. So do you want us to report that? But then do you even have the resources to follow up on these things?
Yeah, I could take that. Yes, the answer is yes, 100 times. We actually have part of our criminal investigations division, we have our financial crime unit. All they focus on are fraud. Because these fraud cases can become so intricate as far as the amount of victims, the amount of loss, we've had issues where a pop-up screen will come on a computer saying, hey, you need to wire $35,000 to a bank in, Lima, Peru.
Switzerland.
Right. And it just happened the other day. I was able to get in touch with the sergeant in charge of the financial crimes unit. They were able to put a freeze on that wire transfer. So the faster it's reported, the faster an officer gets there to take a report and it gets to our CID division, the quicker that if it's a bank transfer, a wire transfer, they can get in touch with the bank and stop the transfer. As far as the other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's really good to know, because that's something that we need to constantly push out, that not only should they be reported like every other crime, but that you do have the resources to follow up on these crimes.
Right. And then the one that we've seen time and time again, and where it becomes a little alarming to us, is the ruse that you just mentioned. Your grandson's been arrested for this, he's in jail, I'm an attorney, you need to pay me this and I'll get him out of jail. What's been happening is a physical interaction is occurring where the person is duped into believing that, and then the con artist or someone associated with the con artist is then meeting this person in a location for a money exchange. And that's when the personal contact is alarming for us. So really, it's important for your residents to know if any time a family member is arrested, one, it's going to be a collect call from a jail. It's not going to be an attorney calling asking for money. That's not how it works. So the more confidence people have to understand this is nonsense and they hit the hang up button, that's going to prevent it from even starting in the first place. But when it does, the faster they notify us, we get an officer there, then we can get our resources, our investigators involved and solve the crime.
Okay, and I think I have one follow-up, which is, I know that our traffic committee is looking into these traffic control devices that municipalities like the town of Chevy Chase have recently purchased, like the lighted stop sign or something, and maybe Elizabeth can elaborate and ask the question about what is your recommendation about the effectiveness of those devices. So Elizabeth, do you want to, maybe
Yes,
I didn't ask enough of the question.
Thank you. We're looking into LED sort of lights highlighting stop signs, and they are movable so that you'd need 4 per intersection. We'd put them at one intersection for a little while, see if that kind of gets more attention and gets people to stop, and then we could move them to another problematic intersection. Do you have experience and recommendations about how to deploy those?
So personally, I would probably put you in touch with our traffic complaint officer. There's definitely, as far as the state of Maryland, the annotated traffic code goes, there's obviously some stipulations as far as height of the sign and certain things that would make that sign legal and enforceable for a police officer to take action at. So if I'm trying to think how we could, on the slide, I have my email, and that way we can get in touch with each other and I can set
Okay. Okay, great. I mean, this is something that you attach to an existing sign, I believe. You attach to an existing pole. I mean, it's a sign that has lights on it. It's the standard stop sign. But anyway, we haven't purchased these yet, but it would be great to talk to somebody in advance so that we're sure to.
Yeah, and I think if you know of a adjoining neighborhood that has purchased these, it'd really be beneficial for you to reach out to them and see if they're having success or if the same common problems are occurring.
The town of Chevy Chase. So I know that it's now 8:07, and I know that we all appreciate the time that these valuable public servants have given us. Before we end, you might want to advertise the opportunity for our leadership here and our residents to come visit the 2nd District Police station. Also, I think there are ride-along opportunities, and there's also our former councilmember Barbara Zuighauser took that 6-week or 6-month training. So you might want to, before we conclude, you might want to advertise all those opportunities, because as many of the participants in this Zoom have pointed out, it really is about sharing information, people knowing each other and working together on crime. The police can't solve the crime all by themselves. They need help from communities, and our community stands ready to assist you in any way that you suggest. So if you want to give one last little advertisement before we go, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, go, Lieutenant.
I'm sorry, I was busy typing. For some reason, I can't type to the whole group, but I wanted to provide the town manager with my email address. Really, honestly, we are here to help you. And in return, we hope that you can help us, because the ideal thing that we look for is we don't want crime. We don't want crime anywhere in the county. Unfortunately, we know that it's going to happen. People will seize the opportunity to make people victims. And really, when we work in partnership with each other, we form these very strong relationships and bonds, and you feel comfortable reporting a crime, and you feel comfortable with the officer who's going to show up and know that he or she is going to go the extra mile for you. That's when real progress is made. And we look forward, like I said, to working with each and every one of you. And please, like I said, I've included my email address. Hopefully the town manager can send that out. I don't mind. Email me anytime, and I will definitely do my best to get back with you within 24 hours. So that's all I have, Officer Stroman.
Thank you. And so again, I'd like to reiterate that we are here to work in partnership with the town of Somerset. And as the mayor has indicated, we have started back doing our station tours. So if anyone or as a group, you all are interested in coming by the 2nd District Station, we've been now at our new location for a couple of years. If you haven't had the opportunity to come by and visit, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'd be happy to schedule a tour for you all to walk you around and kind of show you around our new building. Also, right now, we are still not conducting our ride-alongs, but we hope to reinstitute those very soon. So as soon as they are reinstituted, we will be advertising those, but that's a great opportunity to ride with an officer to kind of see what on a daily basis our Montgomery County police officers are faced with and types of calls and service that we're responding to. And again, as the community service officer for this district, if I could ever be of a resource to you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am there for you. We can work together to address any issues or concerns that you may have on behalf of the 2nd District Station. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And I look forward to speaking or at least working with each and every one of you.
Well, thank you so very much. And this is just the renewal of our relationship. And we look forward to many opportunities to connect ongoing. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from these committee chairs.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll
Go
try to
ahead.
get you back here in 4 or 5 months, maybe.
Great, we look forward to it. So if there's anything we can do though in the interim, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know.
Thank you so much for your time and for all this information.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the
Good night,
town for
everybody.
organizing.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, everybody.